but the whole time that entrepreneurial bug is kind of down there eating away and you're thinking about stuff. All right. So tell us, tell us how you walked away from that and how you came up with VentureFuel.
Yeah, it was interesting. We really built up that business. It was doing really, really well. And I was running the sales force and a few other, the marketing side of things as well. And I had a trip out to the Pacific Northwest, and it was unbelievable, the meetings. It was Nike, I'll never forget, Nike, T-Mobile, Microsoft, Adidas, and Starbucks.
Nice.
In like 48-hour window.
Nice.
And each one of those meetings, the phrase came up, "What's next?" And at first I was really frustrated because I was trying to sell them something, either that they had already bought from me or that was our like go-to product. And they said, what's next? Like, we've already seen this from you. What's the next iteration of it? Is there a new technology or a new way to connect with our consumers? I was really angry. But I went to San Francisco after that. And on the flight there, I was just thinking to myself, I was like, man, those are 5 of the biggest advertisers in the world, biggest companies in the world. And they all have the same problem. They're trying to figure out what's new and different. And there's something there. There's a pain point that if I could figure out how to solve it. So I was just churning it over in my mind. I had dinner with a guy that went to my high school in Alabama. I knew him a little bit. I knew his older brother was a little younger than I was. So I knew his brother better than him, but I agreed to have dinner. And he had a startup out of Silicon Valley, and it was really interesting. And he spent the whole dinner telling me how he couldn't get a meeting with Nike, Starbucks, like the same people I just met with.
Okay.
And I was like, man, here is what's next. It's new and different. It's exactly what these huge companies want, but they have no way to connect with each other. And this entrepreneur, he would kill to get in front of those people. Maybe I could be the bridge in between large companies and startups. And that's what VentureFuel does. I mean, the way we describe it is we futurize existing businesses by tapping into startups and emerging technology. But that was the founder moment. The aha moment was like, big companies want these new different companies, and the new different companies can't get in front of the decision makers of the big companies. Let's bridge that world and make it happen.
And how do you what's the business model there? How do you make money off of being that connector?
Interesting. It's evolved. Originally, my thought was that we would get paid by the startup. We would be like a business development or a sales rep firm. We'd find cool startups, and then we'd go out to all my connections and make deals happen. And we'd take a percentage of the deal, a little bit of equity.
Okay.
And that worked really well. We did that for 3 years.
So not necessarily. Oh, okay. So that worked right away. Okay.
It worked right away, and I can take you back through it. But then we pivoted, and it's working 50 times better now, where we've switched the model. We get paid by the large companies. We are basically a consultancy or an advisory to Pepsi, Nike, Anheuser-Busch, where they come to us with their business problems, something they're trying to solve for, and we'll go find the startups that can solve it.
Wow. So, all right, let me take a deep breath there for a second. So if I'm, I don't know, Nike, and I have a particular pain point, but I don't have a project team working on it in-house, or I don't have the people to work on it, or everybody's super busy. I can't peel off a side team to do this. I don't want to hire a bunch of consultants to do it either, especially if there's a startup out there that's already got it figured out. We'll just either buy that startup or buy their technology or something. Hey, Fred, go find those guys for us. Is that?
Yeah. And it's not always acquiring the startup, right? Most of the time it's actually partnering with them. Like a good example would be, man, there's a lot of good examples. If you're a Nike and you're like, you know what, like I need to figure out how I can reach shoe buyers watching the World Cup, right? Because they want the soccer players that are watching the World Cup, but they can't be the official sponsor of the World Cup because Adidas is already the official sponsor.
Okay.
They can't put ads on TV because Adidas has bought it all up around the World Cup. So they have to get really creative with ways to find people that are actually watching the games. And so we're able to go find a technology that, without going too deep into any of it, knew what you were watching through your mobile device. So it would know that you're watching the USA World Cup game, and then when you went to Facebook or you went to ESPN or wherever, the next ad that popped up was a Nike ad.
I see.
And so they knew they wanted something, but the existing channels with which they market were not solving that problem. So we can go find a new startup. A better example is California milk.
Okay.
So the California milk industry is basically all the dairy farmers in California.
All right.
And they go, hey, milk needs to innovate, right? There's all these like oat milks and there's all this stuff
almond
happening.
milks and all this. Yeah.
But like dairy milk, like, right, there's regular, skim, and chocolate for the most part. And that's because these guys they're farmers, right? They're focused on delivering really healthy products, taking care of the animals. So we ran a competition for them to find new dairy startups. So the product had to be 50% plus actual cow's milk. But after that, entrepreneurs can come up with new ideas, new mixtures, new things. And basically the large California milk was able to come in and sort of turbocharge innovation for their industry.
I see. Okay. All right. Very good. So you get paid. So Nike pays you, but the startup guys don't pay. That you don't get income from them. I see.
No, we decided to walk away from the startup side of it because we have to be unbiased. When Pepsi asks us to do something, I can't just recommend a company that I'm taking a cut of or a percentage of.
I see.
So we work 100% now for the large corporation.
Yeah, but why can't you do both? Why can't you say, hey, startup, I also want 10% of your company to connect you over here? You can't do that.
There are certainly people that do that try and get the bread buttered on both sides. There's probably scenarios that we could, but for now, we really wanted to be very pure. And also I kind of felt like my hand was in the pocket of the startup founder. And it's so hard to start a company. Like, I don't need to be taking their cash.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point. So you took this idea of, wow, somebody needs to fill this gap and be the connector. And then you tied that to the relationships and the networking that you had already built up, some of those people in your Rolodex that you could call, right? And then you started it by yourself. How'd you come up with the name VentureFuel? And did you start by yourself? Was it just you? Walk us through some of that early stuff.
Yeah, no, I remember sitting in a hotel in Portland, Oregon. And I just sat there drafting up names. And I knew I wanted it to be tied into startups. I didn't like the word startup. I felt it sounded too early and too risky. Okay. And I knew there was the venture capital angle. So I was like, ventures is better than startup. And then the fuel part came from the whole thing here is to accelerate growth.
I see.
How can we grow both the existing business and the startup fast? And I was like, if we make the right match, it's like fuel. It's like rocket fuel to take them up. So we put the two together.
When you looked up VentureFuel on GoDaddy, were you surprised that was available?
Yeah, it was, we did a lot. I can't remember. There was something else that I wanted to call it at the time that now it's totally escaped me, but we couldn't. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I went and saw that the domain was taken. VentureFuel was not taken. It was not, nobody else was calling themselves that at the time. So I incorporated it on January 1st, 2014. And then I gave my notice to Zoom a couple weeks later. And I gave them a long notice because I'd been there for a long time. I wanted to make sure I transitioned that nicely. Yeah. But yeah, I'm 100% owner of the company. I started it myself. I bankrolled it. And still to this day, it's totally bootstrapped by me.
Totally bootstrapped. Don't owe anybody. No debt. Didn't have to take on any cash. You haven't given up any equity. Awesome. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit Riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.